Fadahunsi is the Managing Director of and Chief Executive Officer of Aspire HMO Limited. She is a finance professional with over 25 years of experience and with expertise in leadership, strategy, finance, and risk and compliance management. Her experience cuts across consumer markets, companies across various sectors, including the healthcare, retail, real estate, manufacturing, and telecommunications, among others. DFF has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Engineering Physics from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and a Master of Business Administration from Alliance Manchester Business School, Manchester, UK. She is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. She's also a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants. Folakemi has a PhD in Entrepreneurship and Innovation from International School of Management, France. She is a non-executive director of First World Communities Limited, ProWealth Investment Company Limited, Financial Company Limited, and Vantage Forum Limited. Kemi also serves as a member of the Board of Trustees of Fadahunsi Educational Foundation. Please make welcome our CEO, Aspire HMO, Dr. Folakemi Fadahunsi. Over to you, Ma. Please let the emojis keep coming in.
Okay.
Thank you, Ma.
Thank you so very much. Thanks, Oyin. I was hoping we would cut that introduction short. But thanks again, everyone, for being here. And thank you, Dr. Adetutu Kunuji and Dr. Enaro Okai. Thank you for the fantastic sessions. And hopefully, I can add to everything that you have said so far. And I can see all the likes, I can see all the emojis going up. Thanks, everyone, for your participation. Okay, please let me know as soon as you can see my screen. I'm trying to share right now. Let me know as soon as you can see my screen so that we can jump right in. Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Great, great, great. I'm trying to, sorry about that. I'm trying to put it in slideshow. Please confirm that you can still see. Can everyone see my screen, please?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Please in slideshow. Okay, great. Okay, so this afternoon, it's afternoon already, I have the privilege of speaking to you very briefly on the topic of financial pressure and the high-performing woman. I know there are so many high-performing women on this call this afternoon. I'm going to try and be very quick, but also make it as practical as possible, because we're looking at the well-being of a total woman, which is why we started from mental health. We moved with Dr. Adetutu, and then we moved to emotional health and well-being with Dr. Enaoro, and now we're speaking to financial well-being. So interestingly, I've had the opportunity to speak for Enaoro before at one of his emotional intelligence sessions, and it was a group of women that he had been coaching, and that day the topic was, relating emotional well-being and financial well-being. And I mean, I think one of the questions that come up very frequently is there a relationship between the two? Is there a relationship between financial well-being and emotional well-being? And so let me throw the question back to the audience, and please feel free to put in something in the chat. Are there times when because you don't have enough money in your bank account, you have a headache? Has anyone ever felt that symptom? Where just because you received a debit alert, maybe something you bought and you had not yet paid for, the debit alert hits your account, and then you got the alert on your phone, and then all of a sudden your blood pressure is up or you are sweating. you're physically actually sweating just because of that alert. Has anyone ever experienced that? I would like to know. Can anyone still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Has anyone ever experienced that where because of an alert, you are sweating, your blood pressure is up, your body is hot, all of a sudden your throat feels dry, it's like you need a cup of water because of a financial transaction or because of an alert that you just got. Or on the other side, the positive side, you just received a bank alert and all of a sudden, a credit alert this time around, and all of a sudden, you're excited. All of a sudden, maybe you weren't feeling well before, all of a sudden, you're feeling very well. You're feeling very good. Has anyone ever experienced that? All of a sudden, it looks as if the headache is gone. You're all of a sudden excited, strong, and healthy, better than how you were feeling before. And there are times when actually, the symptoms that you had were actually medical symptoms. You went to the hospital, they said you have malaria, your blood pressure was up, or something like that. But all of a sudden, you get a credit alert, and it suddenly feels as if you're feeling better. Has anyone ever
There are
experienced that?
there are there are 6 classes of food. I think credit alert is the seventh.
6 classes of food. Interesting.
Credit alert is the seventh.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Thank you for that addition, Valentine. So the point I'm trying to make this morning is that many times when we feel pressure, right? Sometimes it is not just work. Sometimes it is not any physical symptom. Sometimes financial well-being can also impact on the overall well-being of an individual. And please, Oyi or Jeremiah, if you can help me share my slides. For whatever reason, I'm unable to share from here properly. If you can help me share my slides, that would be really great. So yes, there are times when you're physically strong, there's nothing wrong with you, but because of a financial transaction, all of a sudden you're unwell. All of a sudden it feels as if something is awfully wrong, right? You're sweating, your blood pressure is going up and all of that, which is why we're approaching your total well-being this afternoon from various angles: physical, emotional, financial, and my colleague will come up subsequently to talk about physical well-being. So let's jump right into it. What are some of the reasons why sometimes we feel financial pressure? Thank you for that, for helping me share. Not all stress comes from work, right? And financial pressure is invisible, right? Unless, except for when you open your bank account, that's when you see the pressure, right? It's not visible, but it can be there and it can be constant and it can be carried into the workplace, such that as a result of financial pressure, someone is not doing well at work. As a result of financial pressure, all sorts of things can happen. And I'm already speaking to the next slide right now, where because of financial pressure, you lose focus. All of a sudden, you're unable to focus on your work. You're very distracted. They're giving you things to do. You're not concentrating. You're unable to just carry out the task. Something that's supposed to take 1 hour, all of a sudden, day one, you're still on it. After 8 hours, you're still on it. It looks as if you've lost energy, right? It can also result in emotional stability, where you're just irritable, any little thing, you're snapping at people, you're tearing people apart just because of financial pressure. And of course, decision making also becomes very faulty when you're under financial pressure, and you find women succumbing to all sorts of pressure and making poor decisions because they're just under a financial strain that they're unable to handle. And this comes from various things, especially for the high-performing woman, right? You're a middle-level manager, you're a senior manager, you're an executive. People sort of have a feeling that, oh, you're a high earner, you're earning very well. And so all of a sudden, everybody expects you to be their caregiver. They expect you not only to provide, like Dr. Kuniji said, you're providing emotional support for people at work, you're doing all of that, you're doing your own work, you are maintaining your family, and then there's so many people depending on you to also provide for them financially. So you are the caregiver, you are supporting your family, you are making financial decisions. And so just the fact that you earn well does not mean that you will not be financially strained. I mean, it's almost as if there are some invisible forces that once your salary increases, they notify people, they notify your village people, or they notify everybody that's supposed to be, that can task you, and everybody just starts making demands. My rent is due, my child's school fees is due, can you support me, can you give me this, can you give me that? So it can create a whole lot of pressure, which can in turn affect your all-round well-being and affect your work. So what is the real problem? A good income does not necessarily translate into financial stability. You can earn well and still be under a lot of financial pressure, because it takes more than earning well to live well. It takes more than earning well to be financially stable. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of intentionality. And there are three key things, that I want to speak to today. Number one is, one of the reasons why earning well does not translate to financial stability is that you don't have any buffer. What do I mean by a buffer or savings, right? It's a situation where you are spending everything you are earning. When you spend all you earn, you are living above your means. I'll say that again. When you spend 100% of what you earn, you're already living above your means. You're already living a lifestyle you cannot afford, right? And now imagine people that not only spend everything they earn, but they even borrow to maintain their lifestyle. When you do that, you're already living above your means. When you spend all of what you earn, you're living above your means. And those are some of the things that can create a lot of stress and pressure. And of course, people know you're working, so there are high expectations. A lot of people depend on you, your family, your immediate family. It can be your siblings. And in our part of the world, we are very communal, which means it's almost as if one person's problem is everybody's problem, and everybody's problem can easily become one person's problem, such that people feel free to bring their own financial issues to you to solve for them, right? And those are some of the things, including these high expectations, are some of the things that put a lot of pressure on working women and on high achieving women, right? On women that have a sort of livelihood, and this can begin to impact on well-being. Also, some of the things that can also impact on financial well-being are emergencies, medical emergencies, other types of emergencies, an accident somewhere, a dependent is in trouble, ongoing treatments because of medical conditions, family health needs. Many of these things are unplanned, they are urgent, and they can be very expensive. And that also further puts a lot of pressure on us as women. So not only are you taking care of your home, doing your work, maybe if there's someone that is very passionate about contributing to society, like me, you're involved in all of that, and then you're spending a whole lot of money, on people that are also depending on you to carry them. And all of this thing affects our physical health and well-being, and affects performance at work. So, and it's hard because you're not only taking care of yourself as a woman, you're taking care of yourself, your spouse, your children, your dependents. Even when you're not married, your parents, your dependents, and one health issue can easily become multiple financial obligations, where, you're taking care of your own health, your spouse's health, your children's health, your parents' health and well-being, and all of this can also create financial pressure, in addition to all the other expenses that you already have as a person. I'll move very quickly to the next slide. And what's the impact of all of this on our work? How does financial pressure show up at work? There's mental fatigue. Has anyone ever experienced it before that you're reading one sentence? Someone sent you an email, maybe your boss sent you an email, and you're reading one sentence like 5 times, 3 times. You still don't understand what the person is saying. Not because it is complicated, but because you have mental fatigue. You're tired. Your mind has been working overtime trying to process how you're going to pay those bills. Your brain has been working overtime trying to process how you're going to resolve all the medical expenses or rent expenses or school fees, or the medical bills of your parents or whatever other expenses that you have. And it's creating such mental fatigue that to focus at work becomes a problem, right? To process information becomes a problem. And sometimes you see people making repeated mistakes, one mistake after the other. Sometimes some very silly mistakes that you are wondering, is it that you didn't read the message? Is it that you didn't read the document you sent to me? And sometimes it's just a function of financial pressure. Distraction also. Someone is in a meeting and it's until you shout their name that they come back because they've traveled. In their mind, they've traveled. Their mind is wandering all over the place trying to resolve financial issues. Sometimes what presents itself as overworking may be a function of financial pressure. Sometimes what we call ambition is actually anxiety, where people are doing 5 or 6 jobs. The people that you call, what name do you call them now? I don't want to say jack of all trades. They have their 9 to 5. They're doing one side hustle somewhere. Almost everything you present, they'll say, I can do it. Sometimes people misinterpret that as ambition. Actually, it may be financial anxiety. It may be financial pressure that is causing that, especially when you start wondering why the same person that says, they are an accountant, all of a sudden they are also a data analyst, they are also a web designer. All of a sudden you want to write a book, they're also a writer, a ghostwriter, and all of that. Sometimes it can be talent, right? Other times it's just financial pressure that is making the person overwork. And of course, Dr. Adetutu spoke a lot about burnout. All of these things can lead to burnout. So sometimes it's not only physical ailments that lead to pressure at work, or pressure at work that leads to physical ailments. Sometimes financial pressure can result in medical emergencies, right? And the other way around as well. So the shift is to move from pressure to financial stability. And I've had people ask me severally on different platforms, is it possible to actually achieve financial stability as a salary earner, as someone that has a 9 to 5 job? Must I be an entrepreneur in order to have financial stability? Must I work 2 or 3 jobs? Must I have a side hustle? Must I do 3 or 4 things together in order to achieve financial stability? How do I move from pressure to stability? When the money I'm even earning is not even enough for my expenses, how do I even begin to make this shift? So this is something you have to do very deliberately and very intentionally. It's not just about earning more, because you can earn more and still not be financially stable. In fact, there is this research that shows that when your income increases, your expenses increase also. And they can increase much more than your income, such that you never ever truly achieve financial stability unless you are very deliberate about creating a structure around your finances, creating a structure around your spending. Like I mentioned earlier, if you spend all that you earn, you are living above your means. If you spend all that you earn, you're living above your means. So how do you create structure? How do you create a margin? How do you create protection around your finances? One of the things I like to tell people is that when you spend all that you earn, what you are doing is you are paying everybody else except yourself. Because one day, if you're unable to earn that income, what then happens? You don't have any margin, you don't have any buffer. One day, God forbid, you don't have a job, right? How do you survive? Or you get to retirement age and you retire. How do you then survive afterwards? Because you have not paid your future self, right? You have not kept anything for the future. And so when you spend all that you earn, what you've also done is not only are you spending above your means, You are paying everybody else and you're not paying yourself. You're not paying your future self, right? So how do we build financial stability? And I'll be very brief with this. Stability is built intentionally. First, create clarity. Know your numbers. How much do I earn? This is the 100% of what I earn, right? What are my expenses? How much do I spend on rent? How much do I spend on school fees? How much do I spend on sending money to my parents? How much do I spend on healthcare? How much do I spend on all these various things? Food, transportation. How much exactly do I spend? And so, second thing, create clarity about your numbers. The second thing is to build a buffer of 1 to 3 months. What do I mean by a buffer? A buffer simply means money that you keep away such that if for any reason you're out of job, you're unable to make an income, you have your 3 to 6 months or 1 to 3 months expenses saved away such that you are not going to immediately be broke. That's what I mean by a buffer. Then, of course, you have to set financial boundaries. I'm going to break down how to build a buffer in the next couple of minutes, but let me speak very quickly to how to set financial boundaries. Now, one of the things I need to tell you is that you're not the savior of the world. You cannot save everybody. You cannot help everybody. Like Dr. Adetutu has mentioned, she mentioned it in her own presentation, and Nauru mentioned it as well. Sometimes we have this savior mentality or messiah mentality, where for everybody that asks you for something, you're unable to say no. People are asking you for money, you're unable to say no. There are no boundaries, right? And so you are constantly, even though you are earning well, you are constantly in a situation where you have no savings, you have no buffer, you are paying everybody else except yourself. You need to set boundaries, and I'll get to it in the next couple of minutes. How do you do that? I have the 70-20 rule that I would like to share, and I think it's on the next slide. So I tell people that when I first started working about 26 years ago now, my salary was 25,000 naira. I was working in one of the big 4 audit firms. And even back then, I know someone may say, oh, 26 years ago, 25,000 naira was a lot of money. No, even at that time, it was not a lot of money because it was barely enough to even take me to my office as transportation fare, right? Because I was living very far away and living very far away in a place called Shasha and working in Ikoyi. So imagine that distance, right? So over time, as I studied the topic of financial success, right, and personal financial management, because I'm a finance expert, right, and I did a lot of work for companies, transforming companies, helping companies to be financially stable. And then I started to realize that, you know what, sometimes the financial principles that we apply to companies apply to human beings as well, to individuals as well. And so I came up with this principle, 70-20-10. To spend 70% of my income on my expenses. Someone is unmuted. You may please mute so that everyone can hear me clearly. Spend 70% of my income on my expenses and then save 30%. Or if you are owing someone, or if you don't yet have a financial buffer, which means 1 to 3 months of your expenses saved up in case of an emergency, then you can switch that rule and say 70-20-10. Spend 70% of what I earn on my expenses, use 20%, save 20% as an emergency fund or as a buffer, or if I'm owing someone, use it to pay my loan, and then save 10%. Now, this 10% savings is not saving to buy a car. It is not saving to pay school fees. It is savings for the purpose of investment, because that is how you truly begin to pay your future self and put yourself in a situation where you are not constantly under financial pressure. Guess what? As I continued to watch my expenses and manage my expenses properly, one of the things I also try to do is to ensure that as my income increased, my expenses do not increase the same way, right? Because that is what can easily happen. You now all of a sudden become Father Christmas or Mother Christmas. Every expense, there are no financial boundaries. Just because your income has increased, you pay everybody else except yourself. You will still be financially unstable, and it will still lead to it can still impact on your well-being, right? So what I then found out is there were times in my life where I was able to live on 20% of my income and actually save 80%. There were other times, depending on the stage of life, when I was able to live on 50% and save on 20%. And guess what? There were other times also when I had to spend my buffer that I kept away because maybe, okay, I finished a transformation project and then I'm in between, I'm in transition between one transformation project and another. And then I had to fall on my buffer to pay my expenses, right? Because we are different stages of life. Some are single, some are married, some have young children, some have older children that are in uni or university or in college. You know, different stages of life require different financial planning. And on that DFF tool, Digital Financial Freedom tool as well, you will find useful tips on the different stages of life. As long as you put in your correct age, it should give you useful tips and ideas on how to manage the different stages and the different expectations for your finances. I think I will stop here because of time, knowing fully well that we still have one more presentation. Apologies, I know we started a bit late, but the bottom line is that savings is not enough. Things happen in life, medical emergencies happen, you know, and it's another very good reason to ensure that you have medical insurance, you have an HMO subscription, so that you are not also spending your financial buffers on medical emergencies. You are not spending your savings on medical emergencies. An HMO actually helps you protect your finances as well, because I mean, your medical situations then become the HMO company's problem to solve or challenge to solve, right? So you need financial buffers, but you also need protection systems, you know, and there are so many ways that you can put these protection systems into place, which includes an HMO, a trust, investments, you know, various options. Check out that tool. I'm sure it will be very useful. I'd like to close here and thank you very much for your attention. Over to you, Oyin.